Hopefully my internet doesn't suck again.
Riley, welcome to our professional podcast.
Yeah.
There's probably some user error on my part.
No, I thought it's always funny when it's like a bunch of people who do music and spend a lot of time in studios for a living and then figure out how to use this.
It's better for me because now I get to use my microphone because on the other one I couldn't. So
Riley, you're obviously everybody knows you from Thrice, but what else? Give us the rest of your resume.
That's pretty much it. We did the Less Art thing, put out a record like 7 years ago and haven't put out a follow-up yet.
Did you do that with Ed?
Yeah. It was Ed and then John and Ian from Kowloon Walled City and then Mike Minnick, who sang for Curl Up and Die.
That album's awesome.
yeah, it's so good.
Oh, thanks, dude.
Yeah, we just shoot the shit, man. Let's talk about drums.
I listened to the first one. It was awesome.
Rad.
Oh, thanks. I was about to say, I was like,
Ben saying that he didn't wear shoes.
right?
Yeah.
Let's get into
never wear
the first thing into that.
But before we get into that, we had the conversation about the in-ear mix, and we were talking about that. It's like such a intimate thing. Everyone has their own, drastically different between people.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about how you thought it was weird that no one else has bass. in their in-ears.
Super weird.
Well, we had our reasons. Also, I like how quickly Ben changed the subject when we were talking about wearing shoes. Ben's like, "Oh no, wait, I got a better question."
But wait,
I don't wear shoes because I grew up playing without shoes in my room, and it just honestly, anytime I sit down and play drums without shoes, it feels so weird, like so foreign to me.
You mean with shoes?
No, sorry, yeah, with shoes.
how many times have you like bloodied your feet and stuff from like pedals and
Only once, but it's funny, Riley, I don't know if you still do it, but didn't you put grip tape on your pedals for a little bit?
I did. Yeah.
like skate grip tape?
Yeah, I did
I've
for
seen
a while.
I've seen people do that.
I don't know how effective that is.
No.
Yeah.
So you stopped?
It was, I stopped. It was just a thing I did. And
We were talking about how Nate played in loafers the other day, but I was like, there was one moment on a tour where I bought a pair of Red Wing, like brand new Red Wings, and went to the bus and like put them on and the whole thing. And then it was a pull up and like a dump and dash, like bus was like 10 miles away. And I didn't think through it. I just like grabbed my stick bag and my in-ears and like went in to sound check and the bus was gone. And I was like, I was either I need to go down the street and like buy a pair of Vans to play the show, or I just figured it out and I played in Red Wings and it was awful. Like
I'm sure.
truly awful.
that's like a legit anxiety dream.
Oh my God, dude.
Dude,
My
100%.
toes kept getting stuck under the crossbar on the kick pedal, like the end of the mock toe.
Dude.
It was like, this is
Drummer problems. You could have went barefoot.
Nope. Not
I don't
ever
think
an
that
option.
maybe it was just as bad.
Here's the thing. Do you truly, is it like a weird thing to you guys that it's like barefoot is just, you can't do it?
For sure.
I sweat too
Not a
much.
chance.
Yeah,
it's
it's-
sweat.
that's-
Yeah, the sweat.
All
for
of that.
sure.
All right, that's
You must
the one
have some
problem I deal
killer
with.
calluses.
No, there's one show that I played. It was this is first like few shows with Dashboard. But I had to play with another band before that. So I think it was probably 2.5 hours worth of playing. And that's the only time I got off and there was just a gigantic tear underneath my foot because I had just been, I know it was, but hey, that's the only time.
And you
Why would
and
you
you
say
still
that?
decided to keep playing barefoot?
I'm telling you, anytime I think no one would want to play with me. I legitimately can't play drums with shoes on.
Your poor tech who's like packing up your
No, it wasn't.
Pedals.
There was no blood. It was just,
no, I just mean in general. He's like touching your
I
pedal
mean,
and
it's
it's
still
just like
gross. Bottom of
sticky
feet, still gross
foot
for
sweat
me.
on it. It's disgusting.
glue.
Man.
Yeah.
that's not the worst part. The worst part about a drummer is the throne.
Oh, 100%.
That's like the most disgusting thing.
Why is that, Ben?
It's true.
Speak into it, Ben.
The carpet, if you like travel with a rug, that thing starts to like at the end of a tour, it would like be really stinky. Like,
Yeah,
I
but
also
how-
I spit like crazy. It's
Ugh.
awful. It's a
You also
terrible
lick your
habit.
drum. You've licked your
Okay.
drumsticks in the
Hey,
past
moving
too.
on.
But
Yeah, but I also don't have a drum tech, and there's not like handling my sticks. Like, here you go. Yo, Riley, you mentioned the whole like fever dream thing, or like when you have dreams. How often do you guys have dreams like that? Because I get show dreams all the time. Like, and there's different scenarios where sometimes I'll walk on stage. And it's like, I hear our intro and I get on stage and like my drums are so spread out that I like can't reach them. That's one of them, right? Where I'm like, holy shit, this one's all the way for you. And then the other one I have is that someone hands me a guitar Like I get on stage and they're like, show starts. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do with this? But dude, I have dreams like that all the time. Or like we're at a festival and I hear our intro and I'm like all the way at front of house or like a mile away. And I'm trying to get through the crowd to get to the stage while the intro.
Jesus, dude.
Anyway.
I have one where like I'll look down at the set list and I see a song title that I don't know. And then it comes up in the set and I look down and I'm like, what the fuck is
Like
that?
you literally have never heard that song, or you didn't practice a
It's
song.
not even a song.
It's not even
wow.
a song.
Some collection of words. And then the dudes turn around and look back at me like,
Like, what are you doing?
okay, yeah, click it in.
Turn it off.
Dude. Going back to that shoe thing, craziest thing I ever saw. You remember Zayo?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I saw Jesse from Zayo rip a full like it was the Fire record.
Blood and Fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Creepers. Crazy
that's
double
crazy.
bass shit. Playing that dude was a monster too. He
Yeah,
played the shit out of
Was
his
that the
drums.
Back to the Crowd era?
I was behind him at Coos Cafe, which was like a house, and he was like sitting. I was actually outside because there was no room inside, sitting right behind him. And then there's like this big glass window, so I could just see him playing. And I'm like, what is he doing
Dude.
in those shoes?
There was an
killed it.
era there with him where the drums set up toward the back wall, so you
Yeah.
just saw him from the back.
Oh,
I
sick.
just watched that video at Cornerstone. He sat with his back to the audience, and that video is unreal. They are like the crowd. That was such a cool era for music for sure.
Riley, do you guys play like how dialed is a Thrice set on like click and tracks and Ableton and all that, or are you guys still just kind of ripping raw?
It's pretty dialed now. I don't know, like 98% of the set is to a click, coming off of my Tama rhythm watch for some stuff that's like steady tempos.
Still doing the rhythm watch.
I love
Yeah.
that. Because
All that
that was that's how I started, dude. I
Dude.
love that. That sound is still nostalgic for me.
I
really
hate that sound. Yeah. Go get a hearing test and they're like, you have tinnitus. And I'm like, but I wear in-ears. And they're like, no, it's because you have the click at like 120 dB.
And it's the sound of someone hammering metal.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that. And then if we have anything that's like on a map or that has samples, I do it through the SPDS.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So you do get a lot of bass in your ears then.
I do. Yeah. I just feel like locking in with Ed is like important for what we do. And
Do you ever cut anybody out?
not completely. I have stuff a little bit lower.
Yeah, what is your like? Walk us through your mix. Like what is?
Full disclosure, I've never had an in-ear mix where I was like, wow, this is
Yeah,
amazing.
I don't think any of us, like, raise your hand. Not one I think would be
No, I
like,
don't
dude,
think
that
so.
was perfect.
And that's no shade on the people
Yeah,
who handle
crew,
our
yeah.
monitors or anything. It's just I don't like fiddling because A, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and B, it's like option paralysis. And then I
Right.
feel like you can just infinitely tweak all this shit. And if I started going down that path, at the end of the day, I'd end up with a worse mix than I have now. And I don't want to risk that because a bad in-ear mix is a nightmare, as you guys know.
Do you ever ask for like, you're like, oh, my floor tom's extra boingy today, can you roll off like some highs or something? Like, do you actually get into the EQing of
No.
stuff, or do you just kind of let it go?
No, I just let it go. And then when I was listening to you guys last week, something that I was thinking about is like, you know, you have X amount of minutes for sound check, and especially if you're doing like a festival thing or a throw and go or whatever, you've got like a very specific amount of time. And I feel like I'm last on the totem pole as far as priority goes. Like, singer's got to have his stuff dialed. Guitar guys who, you know, are doing a bunch of crazy stuff with pedals and stuff or playing aux instruments, they got to have their stuff dialed. So if it's like manageable for me, I will not mess with it, because I feel like the second I start messing with it or have somebody else mess with it, it's going to get all fucked up. And then I'm going to think about it for the whole set. And then
Right,
that set.
Yeah, there is nothing worse. Like if you like as a like playing a festival or you know, even having openers on a tour, like jumping on shows where there's like 3 or 4 bands playing and there's one band that's like takes an hour and 40 minutes to sound check. And you're like, I've been there, and that's where something's just not working and you can't get it figured out. But everybody else is going like, these guys, my gosh, they've got, it's just like,
or they're like, let's write our record on stage right now.
Okay. Riley, what's your routine before a show? Do you stretch? Do you play on a drum pad? What's your process?
I don't really have a strict one. I used to be pretty strict about it, like a stretching routine and then like a warm up routine with like a metronome. I feel like over time I realized that would like get me deeper into my head, which was not something that's good for me because I'm already in my head real bad anyway. So I just try to relax, and I mean, I'll stretch a little bit if I'm feeling tight. I'll try to get my heart rate up a little bit before we go on stage so I'm not super cold. And then I'll dick around on a pad, but it's not like you see these dudes, they're like, okay,
2 hours before
200 BPM single strokes for 30 minutes. And then
you don't have like a little practice kit set up back there where you're just like,
I tried that for a while, but nobody wants to set that thing up every day.
Yeah.
Nobody wants
Or
to hear
tear
it
down.
either.
yeah,
I'm not going to make my tech do it. I don't want to do it. Really, it annoys the shit out of your bandmates. Like just tapping on a pad, even with these like reflex pads that are quiet, they're like,
are you done yet?
No, I fully relate to getting in your head the more you think about it. And before shows, for myself, I would have a little bit of whiskey before just to loosen up a little bit. And then I wouldn't really drink during the show. I just have water. Do you do that now?
Less so now. Occasionally I would in the past just because I felt like it turned my head off a little bit, but also it's a slippery slope because if you go a little bit too far, then you're not in
Your
a
legs
good
don't
place. Yeah. And you can't,
you're like, everyone's like, you're not playing the kick drum. You're like, yes, I am.
yeah. And you can't really get out of that. And I don't like that feeling either, because then that puts you deeper into your head, and then your head starts affecting your body, and that's how you have bad shows, of which I've had plenty.
Yeah, but I feel like at this point, you guys have so many records that there's songs that you basically have to play every night. Like if you have, when you go to play Deadbolt, are you even thinking about that, or is it just happening?
No.
Are you still in your head about that stuff, or is it just like,
no, it just happens. I mean, I want it to be super snappy and tight and feeling good. And then, I mean, you have nights on tour where you're just like, dude, I slept like ass last night and I don't feel good. I don't have any energy. And then you see that on the set list and you're like, okay, how do I do this? Even though it's only 2 minutes, like it's exhausting. And the older you get, the harder it gets. Like we just did a bunch of nostalgia shows and I'm not 25 anymore.
Right.
So it was challenging, but there are some songs that are on autopilot. There's other stuff that I got to think a little bit more about. And then, as you guys probably know, if you have a rough show, it's hard not to carry that over into the next day. Like, oh, I fucked this one up last night. Let's see if I can get it right tonight.
Right.
And I wish that I could turn that voice off, but I absolutely cannot.
Well, there was years ago, Death Cab had a documentary that came out. And they were doing an interview, and the bass player, Nick, in an interview was like, yeah, I hate playing that song President of What, because I've played it every night. Because that was still at the, like, everybody was doing like 300 shows a year, or what, just crazy amounts of shows. He's like, I will have played that song 300 times this year. I didn't have to constantly remind myself that the kid in the front row in Wisconsin has never heard it live. And like, I so like, how do you make it new?
Totally.
3 weeks into a tour, it's like hard to.
Are there songs that you don't enjoy playing?
Wow, just
I'm not gonna name any, but yeah, I mean, there are some where I'm just like, oh man, we're playing this on this tour.
And is that just because you're like, I don't want to play this part anymore, or are there like songs that are like, this is really complicated, like I just don't want to have to deal with this compared to everything else? Like,
I think it's like a variety of things. It could be like what you mentioned, or it could be like, oh, I don't think this is going over very well. Why are we still playing it? Or this doesn't feel as together and tight as a band as it should. Should we be doing this? Or I don't feel good about like how I'm playing it in particular.
I mean, how much practicing are you guys doing as a band before you leave for a tour?
I do a good amount on my own, and then it depends on what we're doing. And what kind of a show we're playing or what kind of tour we're on. But we practice a few times before just to make sure everybody's locked in as best as possible. But then first shows of a tour are first shows of a tour. And it's no matter how much you practiced, you're like,
it's always those first few. Yep.
Yeah. Get in front of people. Yeah.
Do you guys all live close?
Yeah. We're all within like 15.
Oh, that's awesome.
Damn,
that rules.
You're not like how many songs are you doing where you're like getting pretty far away from how it is on the record? Is it like, I got to track down a live version of this on YouTube and like remember how we do it?
Everything's pretty true to the record. And then anything that like strays from the record a little bit, it's so ingrained in my head now that I can just jam it to a click and not have to worry about it. But yeah, I'll just make a playlist for the set and just run that until I feel comfortable. Also, I think the benefit of that is like one of the worst feelings as a drummer is being the guy that has to like tell everybody they have to do it over again. Like whether you're writing or practicing or whatever, like, oh, hey, can we run that again? Or like,
right.
You're writing something and you're like, oh, can we run this like section again? Like, I'm not really feeling good about where it's at.
The other side of that is when somebody they're in sound check and they're like, all right, you got 10 more minutes if you guys want to do a round, and somebody turns to you and goes, anything you need to run? And you're just like, why are you looking at me?
Yeah. Is there anything you want to say in practice?
Yeah. Our sound guy is really good like that. Our sound guy's been with us for like 15 years or maybe more. So he's like a de facto member of the band, and he'll totally pull that. Like, he'll be like, oh, we got like 10, 15 more. You guys good? And then we'll be like, yeah. He's like, you sure about that?
Yeah. How about you run that song one more time?
Right.
Oh, that's funny.
You mentioned that you've written the music for various songs.
I write a lot on guitar and
see, I never knew that.
Yeah, I write a lot in Reason too, like keyboard stuff because I can't play a keyboard at all. Like guitar, my ability is poor at best, but I can get an idea across anyway. And then every time I share it with the guys, I'm always like, full disclosure here.
Yeah.
This is slower than it needs to be because I can't play it fast enough.
For sure.
It's sloppier than it should be because I can't play. And you guys, please make this better.
Sound cool.
Here's what I like about this idea.
Yeah.
When you write drums, are you able to like, if you're working on a new song, do you get to sit behind a kit and flesh stuff out, or do you ever write like MIDI or pads or anything like that, like write on a keyboard, like, or is it mostly like behind an actual kit?
Sometimes I'll get into the MIDI programming stuff. When we had less access to the studio that we have now, or any studio,
you did that more.
I did a lot of like programming stuff, but now we have a studio. It's like 15 minutes from my house. Like, it's way more beneficial for me to come here and just run a part over and over and write
for sure
it is to sit at a keyboard. I hate
same
MIDI stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, I know what I want it to sound like.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't sound like that, but the boxes, they're all right.
Yeah.
Dude, it drives me crazy. I've written so many things like on a keyboard too, and I've done like the classic guitar thing, right? Where a guitar player will write a drum part, be like, you can play this, right? And you're like, no, dude, no one can play this. Like, it's so insane. But I've done that to myself. I've written parts and I'm like, oh, I could, and I'll play it. And then I get to the kit and I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, right. It's not even close. So why did I do that?
Yeah.
There is like, it's a fundamental difference to sit behind a kit and play and come up with a part and use that brain space because you're using all four of your limbs rather than just two fingers on the keyboard. Because you can, I feel like that's also cool for like electronic music or whatever, but it's like a completely different brain space.
100%.
Is there a particular Thrice song you're proud of writing?
I haven't really written like a complete song. Very rarely do any of us write a complete song. It's just like,
damn, that's cool.
When it comes time to write, we'll just do like a parts dump. Sometimes somebody's like, oh, this feels like a chorus to me, or this feels like a bridge or a verse. I, for some reason, can only write bridges because I
Bridges are
can't
the
put a
hardest,
song
right?
together.
It's underrated, man. Bridges are
It's not
underrated.
attached to
very-
anything. It's just weird. Like,
Yeah.
You're like, this is
yeah.
The bridge master, dude.
So we just do like a full on parts dump, and then we start cobbling together these pieces. Like,
Wow, I didn't realize
That's-
you approached it that
that's
way.
so cool.
Do you have like a hard drive just full of noodles that everybody puts,
Bridges?
and you're
No.
sort of like, we need a chorus. Let's go just
Bridges.
find one. And
Yeah.
see it. Or is there ever like, we wrote this, we like did this part and everybody really loves it, but you can't find a song to fit it in. And then you're always like going back to it, going like, I'm going to find a song for this part someday. Is that like,
oh yeah, for sure. They're like, we have hard drives and hard drives and hard drives of parts. And then once we came back from the hiatus, like 10 years ago now, almost, which is
Jeez.
insane to me. We started working in this app called Asana.
yeah, oh yeah. Like a,
So it's like a
I've heard of that.
productivity app, I
Yeah.
guess. And
yeah.
we'll just like upload these parts into Asana. So it's just this long list of
Oh,
like,
crazy.
here's Riley's parts, here's Tepe's parts, here's Dustin's parts, Ed's parts.
Whoa.
So we can always go back and reference them, and then we have them for each record that we've made since then.
I don't know
So-
if anybody from Asana is listening, but they should hire you guys.
For real.
That's a hack for that software. That is not, I don't think, like what they intend that to be. That's amazing.
Asana, please
Dustin
sponsor this
thing.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's been super helpful because not only do you have like a backlog of all these ideas that you have, as you start building songs out, you make a task for that song. You start dragging those parts into there. And then it's basically like a message board discussion for
Right.
us. So we can see the full evolution of the song where it's like, this could be the chorus. And it's like, wait, this didn't end up being the chorus. It ended up being the verse. Like, I don't know. Like you can just go back to the conversation and be like, remember when you said this? Or
Right.
remember when you mentioned this, instead of like
That's
in the old days when we're jamming stuff out in the room. It's like, I don't even
Who
remember
remembers
what we
anything?
talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody take a picture of the whiteboard? It's like,
Right.
no, we don't have
What does
it.
chuggy thump times 8 mean? Like what part is that?
I used to write notes. I mean, when I first started playing Copeland and I was still like learning parts, in rehearsal, I would like write things on my snare head. Like,
Oh, I still do that.
yeah, but I would do things
I
like,
write "Don't fuck up."
it would be like, V3 Coldplay. And then like 3 shows in, I'd be like, the hell does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean?
That's
was
how
like-
I am with my passwords for everything in my life. I'm like, I'll never forget this. I'm like, what was that password again?
I write down my passwords like a psycho.
Yeah, Reed,
in
you're
a
the
notebook.
most organized person
Yeah. I was
I've ever
gonna
met in
say,
my life,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know any of
That
my
checks out.
passwords. And in the moment, I think I'm like coming up with the most genius password, and then
It's so
then-
good you can't even
it's so good you can't remember.
Dumped yourself. You get them tattooed on you like memento style.
just look down at your arm. Yo, I actually used to write when I played for Yellow Card this a couple years ago. I literally had to write things on my snare like breathe, don't hit so hard. Like I just had to write so many things to myself because it was like I knew all the parts. Like I think that goes back to the conversation of like getting your head. It's weird that we're all here because we've talked in like on our group chat forever, and you realize how similar everything is. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
those feelings of like I get in my head if I messed up a part, and like just the reminder of like you know it. You know how to play it. And so for me, it was just that reminder. Like, so I'd write things like notes to myself. And I probably seemed like a little bit out there because it would just be stuff like breathe, like notes to not song notes, just like reminders of like, calm down, like you can do it. You know what I mean? Like reaffirming stuff. But it really did help because I just would like, I get in my head. Same thing. I stretched too much. I didn't stretch enough. Did I play on my pad long enough?
Well, it's funny because Riley, I think at one point we had a discussion about this. I don't remember if this is true or not, but you talked about how you would breathe at the end of a fill or something like that. I feel like we had this conversation.
Dude, it is the worst.
No, I know, but when it still has, since that conversation has stuck with me. I don't do it. I probably should, but I'm like, where'd that come from? Like, what's the whole deal with that?
I don't. It's bad. You should not
Like hold your breath during the fill and then.
Oh yeah.
Well, no. So you exhale like as you're doing a drum fill, or like, so you're not obviously holding your breath
okay.
for like You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So Damon, who used to play in Braid or still plays in Braid, and Hey Mercedes, amazing drummer.
Ripping drummer.
He was my tech for a little bit when Braid and Hey Mercedes started to slow down, and then he started tour managing us for a while. But he's an incredible drummer, and he would watch me play, and he's like, "Dude, you're not breathing. What are you doing?" He's like, "When you do fills or you're playing like a really intense part, you got to like breathe through it." And I still like, I can't get out of that mode.
Yeah.
Where I like, if I'm doing a fill or I'm playing some super intense part, like it's like I'm
Hold your breath.
going underwater. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I exhale at the end. And I also do this other shit where I like grunt internally, which is terrible. And it's hard to break habits, dude.
Yeah, it's
Like,
hard to
we've
break
been playing
habits.
for so long. It's just like,
I'm sure actually there's two instances I know. Ronnie from the Killers, they did that song exploder thing where they like break down the song or whatever. And they had pulled out all the tracks, and there's a drum track on a record where he's humming the song while he's playing. And he's like, I didn't even know that I do that, but I do it all the time. And he's like, we left it in the song, but they like soloed the track, and he's like,
Dude, that
while he's and the overheads are picking.
I do that.
I had a story with that. Matt Goldman, I was playing bongos on a part, which is funny. Like we were like adding like all this percussion, and he was like, "What is that?" And he muted it and soloed it, and I'm literally going, dude, I was like, oh my God, I had no clue. Dude, Christian was like, everyone like has never let me live that down, but he was like, dude, we were dying. He like turned it up, and it literally,
That's so funny, dude.
and I think I do it when I'm sure, you know, they do like inside NFL and stuff where they mic up people.
Yeah.
Dude, if they might, I would probably sound out of just singing the song to myself.
It's crazy because I think I'd hold my breath the entire time of a set, no matter the length. I think for an hour, I'm probably holding my breath. It's so bad.
and then you get pics back from like a photographer that shot the set, and you're like,
my
can't
lips are
use
purple.
any of those. Like you're just like turning purple, and all the veins in your neck looking all weird.
Dude, if you can get a few good photos of a drummer where they look okay, that's a big deal. Because dude,
It's tough. Yeah.
doing
Says
what
the guy
we're
who
doing,
every
Yeah,
photo
says the guy
of
who
him looks
was a
cool.
professional
That's
model.
not even
Every
close to
photo
true.
of you looks great.
The
Yo,
problem-
I'm scrubbing through thousands to find.
Yeah, the
this
problem
one,
is
just
though,
so
is
you know.
sitting down is also a tough position because you're like
you can't look.
your
cool.
posture is your posture is bad. You're like your elbows. You're like there's like no weird. It's like it's cooler than being a standing keyboard player, but it's the same kind of thing. Like where you're like,
Whoa, dude.
Yeah, the drum stool is not kind to dad bod, especially if you start to get sweaty and your shirt starts
the
to
fan
rides up.
You're just like,
The fan starts blowing the shirt up, and you're just like, no,
Dad, why does
no.
it look like you have a butt on top of your butt in that photo? Oh, it's your fault. Indirectly.
It's your fault.
because I
blame
finish
your
all
kids.
your extra Cheerios that you.
Right.
Oh.
Been eating quesadillas for 8 years.
I thought I was going to have to do the warning about my kids, but they're being pretty quiet right now.
Oh,
I had
for
to
the-
exit the household.
I wish I had somewhere. I do podcasts in my car. That's the only place I can find silence. I lock the doors. I'm like, Dad's going to the grocery store, and then I'm out front for 2 hours.
I was curious, is there anything from your days being a baseball player that you developed or transferred over into how you play drums?
interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Good question.
I think like the dedication to practice and like routine, and despite when I showed up for this podcast today, being punctual, like that was shit that just wouldn't fly when I was playing. Like you couldn't be late, couldn't slack, you couldn't skip a day. So it's helped keep me disciplined, but I think also in some ways, it's produced a little bit more anxiety than I would like. And that's just, I'm an anxious person in general. And I was anxious when I played baseball too, for the same.
You mean like
reason. That's
performance?
yeah,
like-
performance anxiety.
Yeah. Do you still get nervous? Do you still get nervous at the beginning of show? Like the first song, are you like kind of humming or like buzzing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still get that. I definitely hit the first song I hit way too hard because I'm like, all the like anticipation build up. And then the very first song, you're just like, and then you like calm down. You're like knuckling it.
Dude, once you're on stage, I feel like everything goes up a couple levels. Like when I'm home, I'm like working so hard on like trying to breathe when I play and try to use my body better and like play with the drums instead of like playing into them and all this stuff. I work hard on it, and then we get on tour and
out the door
stage, I'm just like
yeah.
You don't feel that let up a little bit though once you start playing? Because I've had that feeling too, where I get very anxious before a show, and then once I actually start playing, a lot of that goes away for me.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 songs in, it kind of levels out.
Depends on how those first 3 or 4
I was
songs.
about to say those first few songs can make or break a show.
For sure.
That's true.
My thing was always like, I had to learn, like, it's really fun to stay up in the front lounge and like stay up and have a couple beers after the show and have post-show pizza and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, I go to, like, when I'm home, I go to bed early and I get up super early.
Same.
And my sleep schedule, obviously that switches on tour. You stay up late, you get up late. But if I don't sleep really well, my mood, everything, like my desire to even play the show goes down. And I had to learn, like, I would love to stay up till 3 a.m. listening to Slipknot in the front lounge and drinking a bottle of wine and eating Dominoes, but I can't do that anymore. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, the crew dudes can do that, and that's fine. And every once in a while I'll do it, but I would just notice, like, 3 weeks in a tour, I would just be pissed all the time because I like wasn't sleeping, and then you get so tired that you can't sleep. You just like stay up because you're so tired. Like, it's like a really weird.
That's a good point. Like, are you pretty adamant about keeping as much of your home life routines when you're on the road? Because that's so hard to do.
Yeah, I can't really do that. I mean, I try to like eat fairly healthy. I try to get to bed early, but like Jordan said, like my schedule is completely different, and it has to be.
And friends stop by, and the bus call's not till 3, so they stay till 2 and hang out. And it's like, you feel bad going like, all right, it's great to see you guys. I'll see you another year. I'm going to go sleep.
Yeah. I mean, once you have kids too, I think that little bit of like freedom, you get a little bit like, I can do whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it does affect you. You're like, dude, I could just stay up and like not have to worry about anything. I feel like that's what I do. I start to like get in that mode of like, I got no responsibility, so I will, but then I'll make bad decisions as well. So
yeah, you don't have to like hide in your car to record podcasts with your children.
I love how I'm talking about. I really hope no one thinks I'm like talking about like I'm bummed. I'm like,
actually, Riley, we were laughing about the other really personal thing for everybody that tours is the bunk. Which bunk do you take? Do you take the same one every time?
Yeah,
same.
Not necessarily like because it's my bunk, but like, I think we just like fell into some bunks at some point, and then every tour since it's just like, oh, that's where Dustin sleeps, or like,
if you have a band more than 4 people, those middle bunks are the ones that everyone wants.
Yeah. So, well, no, that's I'm on a bottom bunk.
I would always take the top bunk, actually.
Oh my gosh, you might be the only
gymnast,
top bunker.
Yeah.
You might be the only top bunker I've ever met, Reed. That's your first choice?
It's because when I drum teched for you, Nate, for 1 week.
Oh, my bad.
And which I didn't do a great job. That was the one bunk that was available. It was the top bunk.
Of course it was, because no one wants it.
In the back.
Ever since then, and then eventually I started playing with Say Anything, and I always took that bunk.
They're like, go ahead, you can have that one.
Well, that was the nice thing. Nobody wanted it, so I always had it.
Too big of an injury risk. Top bunk.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I never fell out, but
there's still time.
You'd also probably land on your freaking feet, Reed.
Yeah,
I'm not a cat.
Yeah, close enough.
Riley, we were joking with each other about when shows go like really poorly. Is there a show that sticks out to you where it went so poorly that you're like, I cannot believe that just happened?
Oh yeah. I've told the story before. We can't remember what year it was, but I feel like it was in the mid-aughts, like 2004 or 5. We played the K-Rock Acoustic Christmas at Universal Amphitheater. It was a big show, hometown show for us too. Hometown radio, like rock radio station, big deal. We were on tour with My Chemical Romance in Canada, and our flight got canceled. So we flew back to LA the day of the show instead of the night before, which meant we didn't get a sound check.
Oof.
And then for this show, we had this smart idea of having a string quartet play with us for a broadcast that was going to be like listened to by millions of people. And then
what could go wrong?
so we didn't get a sound check with the string quartet. And Chino from Deftones was going to come out and sing the end of a song with us.
Keeps getting worse.
Yeah. And then one of the songs, Dustin was going to play just acoustic by himself. Somebody said this was a good idea at some point. Like all of
Keep
these
piling
things.
it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
So no sound check. Super nervous. We go to play, and the string quartet, I think, was tuned like a half step higher than we were.
No.
Oh man.
And I don't know that they could hear us very well. So it sounded awful. Dustin did the acoustic song, but his acoustic was not going through the PA. So he's sitting up there, or not sitting, but standing, playing the acoustic guitar.
Acapella.
Basically. He doesn't know it because he's got it in his ears. Like,
Yeah, he's like
all
going
sick.
for it. He's just
Our
going
front of
for it.
house guy's like having an aneurysm at the sound desk. During the acoustic song, Ed and I left my drum kit, and Ed walks behind his bass cab, and we're both like sitting down there so that Dustin can do his thing by himself. And we look at each other and we're just like, how is this happening? Why is this happening? This is totally an anxiety dream, but in real life. Like, this is a big show for us.
Yeah.
And it was just a train wreck.
What about Chino? Did he watch all this happen and then just say, "I'm just going home"? He's like,
Chino's like, I'm good.
I ended up drinking a lot that night because I just wanted to forget it.
Oh.
But, and then Chino came out, and I don't think he could hear, I don't think he could hear anything. And I don't know how familiar with the song he was. And that whole thing was interesting. It was just like, I mean, everything that could go wrong went wrong. I actually remember kind of feeling good about playing, even though I was super tired. Yeah, before. And then like we started playing, we played a few songs, and I was like, dang, this feels like good. And then it was just like, boom, off a cliff.
Not so fast.
I'm like, okay, well, it won't be that bad. And then, no, it's actually going to get way worse.
Is it acoustic? Do you play with like hot rods and stuff, or is it full like loud? It's loud, or
No, it's
how
like
was
not
that?
quite acoustic, right?
I think it's acoustic in name only.
Okay,
I think
so
maybe when they started it, it was like an acoustic thing that they did in like a small venue or something, but it's just bands.
We were joking about it because there was a time where Nate was like, Amberlin was going overseas, and he was like, I want to hang out. Like, do you want to come out and tech with me for this run? And I was like, yeah, totally. I'll come out and do that. And it was the first run of shows was at Soundwave in Australia. And so the first show is like Soundwave Sydney, and there's 8,000 people.
Way more than that.
The tent, like watching. Yeah, 20,000 people there. And they hand me the Amberlin like tracks system, and they're like, here you go, good luck. So I set the drums up, and I get them all mic'd up, everything's tuned, so it's good. I go to plug everything in, and I open the case, and it is literally a rat's nest of cables and 2 iPods just in there.
Oh.
And I was like, so I kind of plug everything in and get it all kind of figured out. And the curtain goes up, and they wheel the drum kit out. Here we go. And I hit start, and Nate's like looking at me, clicks going, and he's like, I can't hear anything. And I'm like, what? And I go to his pack, and I forgot to plug in the monitor send, and he played the entire show with just click.
I just had click in my ears. It was sick.
Damn.
Thankfully, it was a festival set. It was only like 6 songs or 7 songs or whatever. But
Right.
I kept running back and forth to the monitor console where our TM was, and it's super loud on stage. It's a freaking festival. And I kept yelling at him like, Nate, can't hear the band. I don't know what's wrong. Can you? And he's like, what? And I finally got pent up and screamed, Nate needs more music.
Dude, it's for
And to this day, if I'm like hanging out and everybody's there,
Hearing
like,
you say that, that story makes me feel so much better because I did the exact same thing to Nate for that 1 week that I texted for you.
I love how this whole thing is me trying to get my friends to tour with me, which I don't give a shit. I wasn't even mad about that. I was like, dude, I don't care. Just come out and hang and pretend like you can tech. That way we get to hang out and we'll pay you.
I kept apologizing to the rest of the crew the whole time.
Dude. It was
Just the
great.
whole time.
Whole trips were great.
I just, and I'm sure everybody's the same way. I feel like this when I'm actually playing in a band too, but like, I just don't want to do it the wrong way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You make a mistake here or there, you miss a crash or whatever, and you're like, that eats at you, but not a single fucking person in the audience even noticed that
Yeah.
happened.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard to remember that sometimes because you're
Well, you have the shows where like you're like, that was the worst show ever. You talk to a fan and they're like, that was the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
yeah, totally.
type
Right.
Situation.
Yeah.
So-
But they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And you're like, actually, kid,
Because if they tell you it sounded bad, you're like, you know what
Wrong.
you're talking about. I think there's a fine line for sure, and I think that is a good thing to remember. But I think if I tell myself that too much, I don't play well. I'm like, hey, they don't know. You know what I mean? And I just end up playing like shit.
Yeah.
You talked about the hiatus. Did you actively play during that time, or
No.
did you kind of just step
No,
away?
I stepped away. I kind of took it because I didn't know it was technically a hiatus, but I had a feeling that maybe it was going to be permanent.
yeah,
I didn't know.
it was the Fugazi
yeah.
style.
Yeah.
How long was it?
It ended up being 2.5 or 3 years, I think, which like
That was
if
it?
you're if you're in brand new, that's like not even
That's
the time
that's album
between
cycles.
records.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I was kind of convinced that we weren't going to get back together. And it took an act of God to Jordan, you know,
Yeah.
to
Quite literally.
yeah, to make it come back. But I teched for a while.
Who did you tech for?
I teched for Jimmy Eat World for a bit.
That's right.
And then teched for Weezer.
Really?
It was crazy. The Jimmy Eat World gig was like drums only, so I was like, I got this.
Or were you doing bass and drums?
And for Weezer, I was doing
Yeah.
bass and drums. And
Did you pal down with like Scott's like a metalhead, right? Isn't he into like
Yeah,
Sun O
yeah.
and stuff? Yeah,
yeah, he loves like stoner metal,
Yeah,
sludge. Yeah, he's super cool. He's got a lot of gear, and a lot of it I didn't know how it worked.
yeah.
So I had to ask
Yeah.
for help a lot. But thankfully I had someone around that could help me. But like multiple keyboards and sampler pads and all kinds of
It's crazy
stuff.
because you think
Wow.
of Weezer as like the 3-piece
Garage
guys
band.
in the garage,
Yeah,
just
no,
like
not in this era, dude. This
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like so much stuff. And then
Yeah.
Pat, he would like change his setup every day,
whoa.
like literally every day.
Just for fun?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
I think we should do a remote hi-hat today. I'm like, what about the regular one? He's like, oh, no, we'll just play it over here. And he's like, I think
Cool.
we'll do jazz style today, like
Cool.
whatever, super high tilted cymbals, like
Dude, it's giving me
we'll do
anxiety.
Whoa.
2 up today, 1 down, and then the next
That
one,
is
1 up, 2 down.
twisted. That is.
I'm guessing
twisted
he
behavior.
does not deal with the same anxiety that we deal with.
No,
because
no.
that's
Yeah, it
that's
doesn't sound
he's
like
trying
it.
he's creating his own fever dreams every night for fun.
Yeah, I actually learned a lot just by watching him and then interacting with him on that tour, like, and then the shows after that. Like, he just turns something off and just does his
That's so
thing, and
cool.
he doesn't like
He's like,
he
I
doesn't
don't
let
have bad shows. I just
anything
kind of.
bother him,
Yeah.
and he's just loving
That's
it.
so
And
cool.
like, if he wants to throw double bass into "Say It Ain't So," he's gonna do it.
That's sick, dude.
I
I mean,
Is
that's
it?
ideal. I mean, no, it isn't.
Is it?
That point of view is cool. I think. Like,
Yeah,
The point of view is sick, and I will say, as I'm getting older, I'm not throwing in double kick in songs, but I'm getting closer to that. I think that I've gotten more chill to that level, not to the level of changing my setup every night and throwing in double kick, also because I can't play it.
Yeah, me
But I think
too.
that's cool when you've been doing it so long that you could just be like, yeah, like, let's have fun. And that's probably what he's doing. Think about how many shows they've played, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, you got to do something to keep it like exciting, you know?
Yeah.
So-
No, he would always change it up. I mean, maybe there would be a couple days where it was like the same, or he just forgot to tell me or something. But most days there would be some kind of like major adjustment. I'd set it up the way that it was the night before, and they'd be like,
You're like, yeah, but I just got it all pinned. Everything's like plugged in.
Oh,
It's all.
dude. I think he got some sick and twisted joy out of watching me like pull up spike tape. Like,
That's not.
He'd film you doing it.
yeah. Got him again. He was such a nice dude.
Not multiple kits though. Like it's the same drum set. It's just,
No, we didn't have multiple kits on the road, but they did have it. They do have a big warehouse with like so much
Oh, I
gear.
bet.
So before every
Dang.
tour, it was like
He
which
just like
kit are we
randomly pick
taking?
one. Oh, that's so sick.
Yeah,
Yeah, any, mini, money.
all these vintage Ludwigs. Like
Oof.
Wow.
Scott's got like 60s P basses. Yeah,
Dude.
like
Ugh.
just the sickest
Did you
gear.
did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy teching?
In some ways,
Yeah.
Like I missed like the rush of being on stage and playing a show, and like
Yeah.
walking off stage sweaty because you did the thing instead of walking off stage sweaty because it's hot as fuck and you're anxious. But
right.
For sure.
I just chill on side stage and just be like, please nothing go wrong. Please
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
go
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
Please
yeah.
nothing go wrong. At
So it's
least, like, please
anxiety
nothing
for
go
different-
wrong with the bass or the keyboards,
Yeah.
because I'll run
Yeah.
out and be like, I don't know how any of this works.
Yeah, it's also the bass thing. It's like all the information about a product goes right out the back of your head when something's going wrong. You're like,
Oh yeah.
you're like,
You start
Definitely.
hitting it.
yeah, you're like, I've never even seen this before. Like
Yeah.
you just can't even remember like what it is.
We're not getting any bass. I'm like,
Yeah.
I forgot
Okay.
to turn the head on.
Yeah, you're like, I don't play bass.
yeah, right.
I will say, I think it's cool that anyone, like even, I think everyone here besides me could probably do that. Like I can't do any of that. I can't set up, besides drums, I could barely set up my own drums, but keyboards, anything in that world, I would just literally be like, I have no clue. So anytime any drummers can do more than drums, I think that's maybe more common than I'm realizing. And maybe I'm on the other side of it, but I'm just like, I kind of starts and stops with drums for me. So when any drummers, like even teching is its own thing. So I'm always impressed when drummers like, I can tech too. Like I feel like I'd be the worst tech. I could watch you, see if something's wrong. I feel like I could do that side of it. But as far as like tuning drums and taking care of and making sure everything's set right, like I just feel like I couldn't do it. And I feel like anytime I hear someone that can, I'm always impressed and think it's really cool.
There's a special thing about like if you have ever worked with a really good tech, it's like they know
It is
how
special
to fix
bond.
everything in the moment.
Yeah.
It's just weird, the little weird things that they've picked up over.
Magicians.
It's the bond between the tech and the player too, for sure. 'Cause
Yeah.
I had the same thing with Brian for all those
100%.
years. It was like I knew what he needed, but if I was in a different situation, I probably would not know what that person needed. You know?
Yeah, was there a learning curve for you, Riley, or did you already know how to do a lot of that stuff?
I mean, on the bass and keyboard side, I had to be shown how to do it, and then I picked it up pretty quick. But like, if something went wrong, I would be in trouble. But I did have like the stage manager nearby who was like, he's like their production manager, like overseer of all things, the guy that hired me. He was like able to step in if I needed. And then drum wise, I mean, as long as the setup is not ridiculous or changing every day, it's pretty easy. But like for Zach from Jimmy Eat World, like pretty simple setup. Like he had some aux instruments and stuff, but just plug and play. And then I'm pretty anal about stuff. So I made sure that everything was the same every day, not only for his sake, but for mine. And then once you're locked in, like, as long as nothing changes, like there's no request from the drummer. It's like,
Yeah, at that level, you're probably not dealing with a lot of like, you're playing like sheds and stuff. So it's the stages are all, you're not like,
dialed.
oh, the stage is too shallow, we can't fit this gear.
I have a story. We did a Weezer tour that was like massive underplays.
Oh,
but
wow.
they didn't scale down at all,
Perfect.
like their gear. So like we played Bowery Ballroom,
Oof.
and they
Dang.
added an aux keyboard and guitarist guy. So there was so much gear on stage. I was like sitting on some cases in a stairwell off to the side of the stage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if anything goes wrong, I have to climb over like mountains of gear that's like should be on stage for like a shed show.
I just saw the Killers there for the 20th anniversary of Hot Fuss. They played Bowery, but they did it with like 3 backup singers and 2 aux players, and he had the K keyboard thing, and they had confetti
I'm sure the
cannons.
crew loved
Like,
it.
Jeez.
full arena show, similar thing.
Everybody's
But
just nuts to butts on stage.
yes,
like,
literally. But it was like 12 people on stage, but you're like, there are semis outside that they were using for staging. So they're like,
wow.
there's just like 3 semis parked outside that have like dead cases in them because there's nowhere else to put them.
Real quick, let's get a little bit drummy. I was just curious, like, gear that you use, have you kind of stuck to the same stuff, obviously with like different endorsements? Like, do you have you played a lot of the same stuff pretty much your whole career? Or have you switched it around, and do you feel like it's like locked in now where you're like, this is my stuff, this is what I like to play?
I'm pretty locked in as far as my setup goes and like drum sizes. I feel like that's been a constant for probably like 20 years.
What do you play
Right now? I'm playing Ludwig.
Sick.
I started playing Orange County drums and percussion, and then moved to CNC, and then I moved to Q, and then once Q went away, I moved to Ludwig. So I'm with Ludwig now. Not as like a fully endorsed artist.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, a lot of brands these days are not really doing that. I found it back in the day. It was like people were throwing stuff, and now it's like, all right, we'll give you like a nice discount. You're like, all right,
40% off and tour support in Asia or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a deal.
And as far as cymbals go, I've been a Zildjian guy forever.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's it right there. It's my dream, Ludwig and Zildjian.
Yeah.
When you switched endorsements, like when you were switching drum companies, do you generally buy the same sizes, same setup and everything, just a different company? Or are you like, oh, I'm with Ludwig, I'm going to add a, second floor tom or whatever?
No, I've had the same setup for ages. Yeah. Used to do 24 kick, 14 rack, 18 floor, but then I went to the second CNC kit I switched to 13 rack, 16 floor, and then I haven't changed since then. With this Ludwig kit that I just got, I did get a 22-inch kick for the first time in ages, and I was like, damn, this is fun.
I am a 22-inch kick evangelist, and like Nate's like 20. So I'm like,
Okay.
I will only ever play 22.
I knew you were going to bring this up. I would say as you get older, the sizes get smaller, and you realize like, oh, this is where I should have always been.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when I was younger, I was like,
True.
biggest sizes possible. But when you get older, you're like, oh my, like playing a 22-inch kick, it feels so good. It's like
Yeah.
the response, it sounds amazing. It's just like, oh, I should always
Yeah.
be doing this, but that's fine.
I got a 22 because I knew we just came off a year of doing the Artist in the Ambulance, like nostalgia tours. And I was playing a 22 when we recorded that. And I was like, oh, I should play a 22 instead of a 24. And then I talked to our front of house guy and he was like, no, just play a 24. And I was like, damn it. Because I started practicing some of the stuff on a 22 and I was like, oh, this feels like not as bad as.
Yeah. Some of those parts, like to play like the stuttery stuff on a 24 is like, it's a monster.
It was hard.
I know we got to wrap up and Reed has a question, but I was going to say, Riley, I was looking at my phone and the last show that I went to before lockdown was January 25th, 2020. I came to see you guys at Showbox Soto.
Okay.
And then like 2 weeks later, Seattle shut down.
Well,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, dude, and I shot a video of side stage. I think it's like a green sparkle. Is that the Ludwig kit?
That one was a Q kit.
That's 2 weeks before I didn't see live music.
So wild.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So
we just barely snuck that tour in. And then we came home and I was like, wanted to decompress and went up to the mountains and then the world just stopped.
You came back and you're like, wait, what's
Like,
happening?
Oh, wow.
Perfect timing.
I wanted to ask you about album art real quick. So our beloved Jordan here has done cover art or just the entire art for a few of your albums. Which one do you hate most and why?
Tell us which one he failed.
He never fails. And he is always so patient with us because we're like a very democratic band. So everybody's got opinions on how stuff should be, whether it's a song or set list or album art. And it takes a lot of time to like filter those opinions and figure out like what the band stance is. And we probably have driven Jordan nuts with like, oh, wait a minute, can you make it like, no, actually like this? And then he'll send something over and we're like, no, actually like
yeah,
this.
no, I think Ken does a good job filtering most of that stuff out.
Yeah, it's tough. And I mean, a lot of times it's like, okay, cool, it looks good. And then somebody will just have some wild idea all of a sudden, like, oh, why don't we do this? And it's like, well, why don't we talk about this 3 weeks ago or something? And it's like, because I didn't have the idea yet. It's like, okay. But at some point, it's like writing a song. Like at some point, you got to put it to bed, right? Because you could just tweak it
forever.
Infinite.
Yeah.
No, Jordan's the best.
Okay, that's it. Let's move on.
And on that note, we're going to end it here.
Riley, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for hopping on, man.
Yeah.
Actually, before really quick, you're older than Ed, right?
Yeah.
So when you guys were starting playing, or like when you were kids and you're like, I want to play drums or whatever, did Ed pick bass because you picked drums, or is it the other way around? Like, well, how did that like?
Good question.
We had a guitar at the house when we were kids, like in our teens. And then I was all about sports and specifically baseball. And then I hurt myself playing football. And then that kind of derailed the baseball stuff for a while. So I had like a year where I couldn't play any sports. I needed like a physical outlet. So I bought a shitty drum kit for like $150 or something.
Did you cover it in tinfoil?
And then, yeah. And then that was just what I did to like get some frustration out and just give me something to do when I couldn't run or play any sports. So I played drums and I played in a high school band really bad with my friends, and Ed had the guitar the whole time. And then fast forward like 4 or 5 years, Dustin and Tepe wanted to start a band, but they were both guitar players. And Ed was like, oh, I want to be in the band. Like, can I play? I guess I'll play bass. So then he bought a bass and started teaching himself how to play bass. And then they didn't have a drummer. And Ed was like, oh, my brother plays drums in some band. Like, he should jam with us until we find somebody. And then we started jamming and started writing songs, and it just stuck.
That's so sick.
All right, man.
Yeah. Thank you, man. It's good to see your face.
I'm gonna go practice for a festival that we just decided that we were gonna do like yesterday.
Hell yeah.
You're like, actually, it's a string quartet and Chino's joining us. It's like weird.
It's next week. It's one of those like oh shit calls that we answered, and we're like,
those are always fun though. We'll do it.
All right, man.
Thanks for
Cool.
taking the time.
Great to see you.
yeah, guys, good to see you all. I hope to see you in real life soon.